A once noisy and productive city sits upstate New York between Syracuse and Buffalo, known as Rochester. Populated for the Erie Canal, completed in 1825, it is the original home of Xerox and Kodak, along with many busy factories. Rochester was an important trade and transportation center throughout the 19th century, bringing extensive economic wealth to upstate New York. But as the last boat floated through the Erie Canal in 1919, the trade center was slowing down. The question of what to do with the land started popping up as the canal sat abandoned. A large highway was proposed to fill the space, but was denied due to there only being roughly 3,000 automobiles in the county. This resulted in the government agreeing that a subway system would be the best option for the city, a mistake that will come back to haunt them later. Although still in discussion, the city council passed an ordinance setting $1.8 million, around $34 million in 2025, to build a subway and overhead street on the old Erie Canal aqueduct. Delayed by a shift of focus to World War I, Rochester got back to work in 1920, hiring George F. Swain, a retired civil engineering Harvard professor, to study their plan. Swain and many others were in favor of Rochester's plan. The subway system aimed to connect various railroads and factories all over Rochester, acting as a public transportation system for all the workers. The other major aim of the subway system was to get interurban cars off the streets. These trolleys were causing many accidents and even fatalities, dubbing Main Street as the Isle of Death. Protests from citizens over these dangerous interurban cars caused Rochester to speed up the creation of the subway system. Around this time, it was realized that the roof of the subway tunnels could be used, which resulted in a parallel street known as Broad Street to lower traffic on Main Street. Inspired by the population of Rochester increasing by 100,000 people from 1892 to 1915, the city aimed to encourage growth and expansion. They predicted the city's population would rapidly expand, so the subway system was always open to being extended. All local newspapers, the Common Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and the labor unions supported the subway project. A Times Union headline read, "Complete unanimity of opinion in support of the city's plan for construction of the subway." In early 1922, the construction was launched. The construction started out slower than expected, with much more excavation having to be done. The slow construction started some debate over how good of an idea the subway was, and how poor the planning of the city was. The New York State Railways also said they would not run their train cars in the subway tunnels unless they were permitted to operate the entire system. However, this was felt as an empty threat to many. As time and construction moved forward, the community became more confident in this plan. The Rochester subway system was a perfect example of the construction technique and machines used in the 1920s. It involved a combination of traditional hand tools and recently emerged heavy machinery. The cut and cover method was used for much of the subway. This technique involved digging a trench along the route, laying the tracks, and then covering the tunnel with concrete. The excavation of the tunnels was conducted by large steam-powered excavators and steam shovels. The large bucket arms were capable of removing massive amounts of earth and rock. These steam shovels can still be seen in many photos, and one is even visible in Leroy, New York. Although there is no solid evidence that this exact machine was used in the Rochester subway construction, the location and time period leads me to believe it was. For more stubborn rock, dynamite also could have been used to blast through and create a tunnel. Once the trench was dug, rebar and concrete were used to form walls, floors, and ceilings of the tunnels. By the end of construction, the budget was way over the estimation. Around $12 million, $222 million in 2025, was put into the subway system. $10 million over their initial estimate. 64 years after the first ever subway system was constructed, and 8 years after the last canal boat floated through the city, the Rochester subway system was opened to the public in December of 1927. By April of 1928, it seemed to everyone that the subway would be a huge success. 125 cars entered the tunnel starting at Winton Road every day, bringing people all over the city and to the factories of Rochester. This success sparked interest in an extension of the subway system. Although not reaching the full dream system, in 1938 a short extension was made to the Rochester General Motors plant. Throughout World War II, the subway system actually operated profitably, but this was the last, and maybe only, time it was used to its potential. The subway's fault is that it starts nowhere and goes nowhere, says the Rochester Times-Union in 1949. This is believed by many to be the reason the subway system failed. Rochester never changed its land use patterns to encourage real estate around the subway stations. As Urban Planet website Planetizen states, transport and land use decisions are two sides of the same coin. Transit is supposed to serve the places where the majority of people live and work, for example, the Kodak factories. Rochester failed at this. Even at the time of construction, it was considered a fault in the system. The subway system didn't service the Kodak Park along with many other businesses in the city. The public's constant request for subway service improvements and extensions were always ignored. This led many to find their own method of transportation, the other reason the subway system failed. Between the time that the subway system was proposed, 1910 to 1930, the number of automobiles increased over 30 times. Earlier I mentioned how a highway plan was rejected due to there only being around 3,000 cars. Well, in 1922, the amount of cars reached 40,481. And in 1927, when the subway was completed, the amount of cars reached 103,312. In December of 1949, 22 years after the subway was opened, the discussion of whether to continue the operations began. By 1952, the amount of people using the subway had dropped so quickly that Sunday and holiday service was closed. Finally, in 1955, the City Council secretly voted to discontinue the subway service. The last passenger train in the subway ran on June 30th, 1956. Today, there are a few traces of what system used to run through Rochester. Many of the tunnel systems were filled in and developed on top of. The Eastern Expressway, I-490, and many other roads sit in place of where the tracks once were. This completed the canal's evolution from water to rail to road. The most obvious and intriguing piece of the subway that is left behind is the 2-mile tunnel under Broad Street. This crumbling tunnel sits in the heart of Rochester, part of it running under the Rochester Rundle Memorial Library building. As long as this tunnel has sat abandoned, there have been heated debates about what to do with the potentially dangerous land. In early 2021, a Rochester Institute of Technology architecture student proposed a solution to this rotting tunnel and bridge for their thesis. After researching and displaying many examples of reinvented abandoned places, Jin explains the goals of this proposition. The design principles and guidelines that are valued in a mission like this are aesthetics, symbolics, historical inheritance, and functional practicality. This proposal for the area is perfect for keeping the history of the area in mind, while still creating something new and exciting. As quoted from the thesis, the exterior aspect should retain the cultural characteristics of the original building as far as possible. They decided to split the bridge into 3 parts, made up of the west courtyard, the main building, and the east courtyard. The west courtyard contains a pedestrian street, fountain, and parking for bikes. Noting that this side is closest to the Blue Cross Arena, this area is perfect for events and festivities. The east courtyard contains a path, a corridor, a parking lot, and an entrance to the library. Part of the bridge is an above-ground garden walkway, with a pedestrian path below. The currently crumbling concrete tunnel would be transformed into a beautiful walkway over the water, even offering a place for an exhibit or farmer's market. Above ground has a path with several seating areas, such as picnic benches for people to enjoy on their lunch break. This plan also includes a way to turn the original subway tunnel into a cafe, a bookstore, a garden, and a multi-purpose room. All the materials proposed are similar to those used in the original bridge. It combines these original material looks with more natural and beautiful parts, such as the gardens. This thesis is incredibly detailed and well thought out. I only scratched the surface of it with this summary. It is a perfect display of the potential that this space has, and how it can turn the heart of Rochester into a beautiful communal spot. Possibly inspired by this thesis and many people showing concern for the tunnel, in October of 2024, the city of Rochester showcased their plan for the subway system. Their plan was described to Democrat and Chronicle as aiming to uncover the historic Erie Canal Aqueduct and transform the Broad Street Bridge into a vibrant, accessible space for the community. This will be done through multiple small projects. The final result will remove the road from Broad Street and transform it into a pedestrian and bike-friendly path. There will also be many picnic tables and seating areas. They plan on keeping the original subway walls, turning the tunnel into a walkway, and even possibly keeping some of the graffiti that exists today. The city plans on making the whole bridge a more accessible and clean space for the community. An incredibly historic city such as Rochester comes with a lot of fascinating places that have fallen to time. The subway system they created is a perfect example of the struggle to keep up during a quickly evolving time. The need for supporting a community while predicting where our technology is headed can be an impossible task. The subway system remodel brings a glimpse into Rochester's attempt at reusing their historic land, and hopefully inspire many more locations to follow these steps. As of now, though, Rochester remains the most unique example of a failed subway system, and the only one that still remains abandoned.